We now move to the next agenda item, APAC Roundtable Part 1, Market Updates. In this session, we have two distinguished government executives, Mr. Manoj Kumar, Executive Director, International Financial Services Center Authority, IFSCA, Government of India, and Dr. Adi Budiazo, Head of the Center for Financial Sector Policy at the Fiscal Policy Agency of the Ministry of Finance, Government of Indonesia. Sirs, it is our pleasure to welcome both of you to this conference. The session would be moderated by Mr. John Levin, who is the Head of Commodities APAC TD Securities. I now give a brief introduction about Mr. John Levin. Mr. John has been in the metals market for over 28 years, starting his career in 1992 with Mitsui & Company, where he had many years of working in their Sydney, New York, and London offices. Following Mitsui, John went to HSBC London, where he was the Managing Director and Global Head of Precious Metal Sales. In 2011, Mr. John went back to Australia to run ANZ's global metals business. And after 9 years with ANZ, he has moved to Singapore to join TD Securities. Mr. John Levin is currently on the Management Committee of Singapore Bullion Markets Association. A brief introduction about our two distinguished speakers. Dr. Adi Budiazo has held several executive positions across the functional initiatives at Indonesia Ministry of Finance since 2014. Most recently, he was appointed as the head of the Center for Financial Sector Policy since August 2020, after previously serving as the head of the Center for Climate Change and Multilateral Policy. Prior to joining Fiscal Policy Agency, Dr. Adi Budiazo served as a head of Finance Profession Regulatory Agency from January 2019 until July 2019, and Human Capital Advisor to the Secretary General of Ministry of Finance from November 2018 until January 2019. He has also been on the Working Secretary of Indonesia Planning Team for 2018 International Monetary Fund World Bank Group Annual Meeting in Bali. Dr. Adi Budiazo is the Master of Accounting from Marshall Business School, University of Southern California, Professional Doctorate in Business Administration from University of Canberra, and completed his executive education in climate change and energy policy from Harvard School of Public Policy. A brief introduction about our next speaker, Mr. Manoj Kumar, who is the Executive Director at the International Financial Services Center Authority, IFSCA. Mr. Manoj Kumar joined IFSCA as an Executive Director on deputation from SEBI, which is Securities Exchange Board of India, which is a regulator for capital markets, and has been driving core regulatory initiative focusing on capital markets and precious markets, metals at IFSCA. He is actively involved in enacting a conducive regulatory environment, facilitating ease of operations with specific thrust on developing GIFT IFSC as a thriving destination, particularly for bullion trading, fintech, sustainable finance, investment funds, insurance and reinsurance. Prior to joining IFSCA, he has been associated with Securities Exchange Board of India, a premier autonomous regulatory body for securities markets in India, for more than 24 years. During his stint at SEBI, he was engaged with market regulation, integrated surveillance, market intermediaries, regulation, and supervision. Before moving to IFSCA, he was spearheading critical initiatives of SEBI relating to interoperability, cybersecurity, fintech, and market infrastructure institution through SEBI's Secondary Market Advisory Committee, Technical Advisory Committee, High-Powered Committee on Cybersecurity, and Committee for Financial and Regulatory Technology. He holds a postgraduate degree in science and an MBA. With this introduction of our two distinguished speakers and the moderator, I hand over the session to Mr. John Levin.
Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to those joining from Europe and the United States. My name is John Levin. I work at TD Securities, and it's my great pleasure to moderate this panel with two distinguished speakers. Manoj, we start with you. I've been a visitor to India for, like any Australian, we love India, we love the cricket, we love the culture, and being in the gold market, we love the gold business in India. it's a constantly evolving market. I know everyone's going to be really interested to hear what the IFCA has in store for us and what it's looking at, how you're viewing the market and its evolution in India. So without further ado, I hand it over to you, sir.
Thank you very much to the organizers and to John for this introduction, and thank you, Mr. Srivastav, also for elaborately reading out my CV before the audience. As you recall that last conference also I was fortunate to attend, and it was very much enlightening experience to always be part of this Asia Pacific Precious Metal Conference. And we being a new regulator in the horizon, always very keen to be part of this type of conferences so that we can share our views, we can share what areas we are critically working on, and to gain experience with jurisdictions which are already successfully implemented various developments surrounding the precious metal. While I was also attending and listening to David Tate and Ruth Crowell, and I was a little bit enthused by the last slide with which Ms. Ruth presented, where Taj Mahal, the iconic building, was also reflected. So I was wondering that maybe sooner a day will come when probably the bullion exchange, international bullion exchange, which we are trying to create here in GIFT IFSC, may also find some place in this entire ecosystem. And just to share with all the participants here that shortly we as a unified regulatory body for this GIFT IFSC are going to enact our own iconic building here. We have got a specific land allotted to us, and maybe if we continue to get associated with the Asia Pacific Precious Metal Conference, and soon we will have the iconic projection of our building too. With this, now I would start the formal presentation, and I will just take you through that since November till date, how we have moved forward with this significant initiative of International Bullion Exchange. As many of you may be aware that this is something, a very unique experience and experiment which has been taken here in India, where we have been created as a unified regulator under the IFSCA Act, which was notified in December 2019. And under this unified regulatory mandate, we have been, IFSCA has been entrusted with the powers of all 4 sectoral regulators, that is Securities Market Regulator, that is Securities and Exchange Board of India, from where I come here at IFSCA on deputation, and Banking Sector Regulator, that is the Central Bank, Reserve Bank of India, Insurance Regulator, that is Insurance Regulatory Development Authority, and Pension Regulatory Body, that is PFRDA. So all those 4 sectoral regulators mandate power has been merged into one, and with that merging, this new body has been created. And over a period of time, we became fully operational somewhere in July, and after July 2020, and after that, we have, you can see that there are a large number of market players which have been onboarded here in GIFT IFSC, including banks, insurance companies, capital markets, and asset management companies. Next slide. If you notice that like any international financial center, here in GIFT IFSC also, a lot of quantitative tax regime structure has been enacted, and under this structure, many exemptions have been provided, and many of those exemptions are similar to what other centers are having. And in some one or two cases, probably we have tried to better off. And the idea is that tax structure should be competitive enough to attract players who are willing to participate in the growth story of India. You all know that India as a gold market is quite well established in terms of consumption. And as I recollect that probably we are the second largest consumer of gold in the world. With such a huge consumption of gold, probably time has come for us to think that how we can leverage upon this passion for gold into better construct surrounding the International Bullion Exchange. And from this perspective, this entire initiative of International Bullion Exchange was pronounced by the Government of India in the budget of 2020. And there could not be any better place to establish International Bullion Exchange than GIFT IFSC, because as a concept, this has been developed as an international financial center, services center, where all types of financial services and products which are globally competitive and which are globally benchmarked are required to be made available. If I take you to the vision of IBE, though we are new player in this entire ecosystem, but we have kept our visions very high. And as you notice that we want to leverage upon our consumption patterns by building upon the transparent trading hub here in GIFT IFSC. And when I articulate this vision, I am coming from a background where our stock exchanges, our depositories, and our clearing corporations have established a significant presence globally as far as securities market is concerned. And we want to leverage upon that global presence and expertise and try to ensure that the same sort of standards should be established as far as bullion trading is concerned. If you recall that many reforms have happened prior to coming to this scenario after the announcement of 2020 budget. We were in 2014 having a scheme which was popularly known as 80-20, and where there was an export obligation of 20%, and that same has been now abolished. And pursuant to that abolition and IFSCA coming into picture as a unified regulator, GIFT IFSC has been entrusted the task of establishing an international bullion exchange. And in the budget of 21-22, while rationalization of import duty, etc., has also taken place, another significant announcement was made where domestic spot exchange is also being envisaged under the budget provisions. Yeah. If you notice from this matrix that the entire unified structure which we have been entrusted under the IFSCA regulations, the same thought process of unified approach we have carried forward, where we have already onboarded a consortium which is backed by 5 critical players from the domestic market. That is National Stock Exchange, which is probably #1 exchange in terms of derivative trading. Then Bombay Stock Exchange, which is popularly known as BSE, which is the oldest stock exchange of Asia, and MCX, which is a commodity exchange, along with the 2 very, very technologically advanced depositories, that is NSDL and CDSL. With these 5 critical market infrastructure institutions in place, we have onboarded these all 5 players into the consortium, and this consortium approach we are very hopeful that will help us in having a very conducive and constructive creation of international bullion exchange and other related products and systems in GIFT IFSC. And from that perspective, there is a huge opportunities, and one of the opportunities for bullion banks where they can really participate from the beginning into creation of world probably best standards and probably one of the best globally benchmark products, because we aim that in all respect our bouquet of products, our systems in terms of onboarding of trading and clearing members, similarly creating an infrastructure for facilitating refiners and presence of jewelers here in this ecosystem. All this is attuned to match the global standards and benchmarks. And why we are specifically presenting this slide is that we believe firmly that there is a need to have a perfect supplying source, and there can't be any good supplying source except for the refiners. And we are very keen that we should have a very well developed, renowned refining framework and system here, so that globally renowned refineries should also be present here in GIFT IFSC. And towards this, we are trying to benchmark ourselves with LBMA standards, and till time we developed our own Indian standards, because going forward, that is our high-end objective, that not only we become a price setter, because we are a biggest consumer, one of the biggest consumers of gold, so we aim to become a price setter. And at the same point of time, we are very much focused that all best global sourcing standards needs to be adhered to till time we develop our own standards in line with the OECD principles or LBMA accredited principles. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Manoj. That was, I can't tell you how interesting that was. We're all so watching closely the developments of the Indian market. It's in all our interests to have a thriving, vibrant, transparent Indian market. I guess asking out of pure self-interest here, how do you see the evolving role of the offshore international banks in this new ecosystem that you're talking about? Will they still have a critical role to play in providing the physical liquidity and the financing to the onshore banks and corporates?
We are at a very advanced stage of interaction with the various stakeholders. And as a part of that interaction, we are interacting with all internationally recognized and renowned players, including the international banks, which are performing a great role. And based on our interaction, we will crystallize our thought process, because how we have structured this entire initiative is that once our MII, that is market infrastructure institutions, are in place through a consortium mode, we will start interacting and devising eligibility norms and the roles which each and every ecosystem player is going to play in this international bullion exchange initiative. So it is slightly early for me to give you any concrete thoughts surrounding this, but yes, these are initial stages where we are absolutely open for any suggestion and interaction and guidance. And from this perspective, this type of conferences and interaction with experts like you and Ruth and David Tate is extremely important for us.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom, sharing your thoughts. We're all watching with a great deal of interest. as we will watch with interest when Australia plays India in cricket. And I'm sorry, but we're going to have to beat you in that. But you can beat us in the gold market.
Yeah, but you know, John, we are going to shortly play the test match in this test series. And unfortunately, we would have loved to have Australia there, but Australia is not there. And I think yesterday I was listening to Sachin Tendulkar, and he was also lamenting that Australia would have been a good contender to play with. So we look forward to Australia.
Yeah, well, I think we're all looking forward to just being able to meet in person, as Ruth mentioned in the last session. I think we're all just great community, and we can't wait until we can all get together in person and talk about the market and our common interests. But it's time now to move to our next speaker, and it gives me a great deal of pleasure. You've heard his biography. It's impressive indeed. Seems to have gone to every university in the world, as far as I can tell. But next is Dr. Adi Budiaso with the Ministry of Finance at the Government of Indonesia, talking about a topic that I know I'm interested in, and I'm sure you all are, just how the Indonesian market can evolve in its bullion banking and its general ecosystem of gold and its part within the Asian market. So Adi, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Many thanks, John. Thank you, Pak Manoj, beforehand, and really grateful to have this opportunity. Currently, I would like to share my presentation, and actually, this is the way we would like to share, the way we would like to, explore the Indonesian Bullion Bank as a potential and also as the future of the implementation in Indonesia. As we are already aware, a bullion bank is an institution that facilitates the purchase, storage, sale of bullion, as well as the offering financial and financing services to its customer. And Indonesia indeed should have a bullion bank due to the potential of Indonesia as the producer, but also in trying to make use of the traditional business processes in the bullion, as well as in the future, probably the more sophisticated one. My presentation today is actually comprises almost all of the questions that we already learned together. Thank you for your kind support. And actually, it's about what are the really ingredients or the key elements of the bullion bank, the regulatory framework, the prerequisites, and how the bullion bank actually is part of the option of the implementation for Indonesia, and why bullion bank. And I'll also try to explore about the current research about bullion bank and millennials, as is quite interesting, and how then we try to explore the synergy between Indonesia regulatory framework among Indonesian Central Bank, OJK, Financial Service Authority, and as well as the Ministry of Finance. This is the bullion bank ecosystem. We do hope this will become the improvement of the existing one. To be frank with you, the problem of supplying materials of gold bars in Indonesia and gold jewelry producers is due to currently to the fact that there are different VAT treatment, value-added tax treatment, between gold bars and also the gold granules. And this is regarding to the problem that the government also try to observe and put some more efforts and provisions to improve this effectiveness. So we do hope that later tax on granule and tax on the gold bars can be more streamlined. And we do hope that can be implemented soon. So that means one of the important underlying support for bullion bank operational can be supported and enhanced. The next one is on the prospect of the gold economic value, which is I would like to focus more on the fact that the current research done by Pegadaian is one of the Indonesian practitioners in traditional bullion transaction, which is based on the historical data, confirms that gold investment in Indonesia is dominated mainly by baby boomers. But now we just knew that the large potential is also shown by millennials generation, with the increasing trend of the consumption and investment in bullion since last 5 or so in back years. That means that the most of domestic gold production that currently still we'll try to work on it, the export import associated with it, and how then the Indonesia can still improve the potential market making by the bullion can be also promote in the future. Next, this is what we try to also explore on the business process and the value creation of the establishment of the bullion bank. We noticed that 4 key elements or 4 key factors that need to be enhanced as one of more significant factors as prerequisite for the implementation fully bullion bank in Indonesia. First is of course in the customer focus. We would like to make use of the high potential value for the customers, product flexibility in terms of from traditional into more global or value chain related to the LBMI in the world, and how the risk management that associated with current practices or regulatory framework in Indonesia that we still currently employing the commercial bank. We would like to more looking forward on implementation of the universal bank principles. And of course, the regulatory framework, we now sit together with all of the key stakeholders currently. We work on how the commercial bank or the insurance companies be ready to, if the government will try to impose it as early as possible, something like that. So this is still under the discussion. And for sure, we open for more inputs from the all of the key strategic partners, especially from this seminar as well. Next, if we would like to explore on the business value creation that we try to mainly divide into, at first, we should explore the traditional one, which is the sales and trading and financial services associated with bullion need to be strengthened. But of course, we should also engage with the customer, the sellers, and the regulator, as well as the potential investors, that the mining, refinery, end-to-end key business process that can lead to more contribution to the transaction as well as to the potential benefit for all key stakeholders are really being encouraged. For sure, the regulatory framework, especially in terms of the role of the FSA and BI. Currently, we noticed that since the Basel III promoted to be strengthened in the and be effective in next year, we do also explore how then the Indonesia can be ready, at least in terms of revising the banking law, the capital market law as necessary, because this year the government has been committed at least to review all back into one package of the bill into the omnibus law in financial sector. So this is one of the, among other key contributional factors that need to be explored as well in trying to support the maximum value creation in welcoming bullion bank in Indonesia. Next, with regard to the option, if we may try to explore how then we can study on the current practice, appreciate what we have done so far. Bank Syariah Indonesia and the existing universal bank that currently BRI, for example, currently own Pegadaian or pawn shop that currently also have traditional business processes directly related with the gold or bullion. I think that's one among other key factors that now we try to formalize 4 key options, which is first, how if we try to piloting the one of universal bank or 2, something like that, to expand the current commercial bank activities to welcoming the more transaction with regard to the physical and futures, but I don't think futures at the short time probably will be need to be staggered. But we also need to strengthen bank capital requirement, risk management, assessment, supervision, as well as on how to mitigate the allocated and unallocated one. We prefer to be a more allocated one in the beginning and later on strengthening on the key features of the sophisticated transaction with regard to the bullion. The second one is on the Sharia banking in Indonesia. Recently, the consolidated enforcement of the capital in Sharia banks in Indonesia leading towards more potential expansive of this bank. to be one among other key features that bullion bank can be traded by the Sharia banking Indonesia. For sure, we still need some of the also the strengthening on the existing regulation one, but for sure, even though because currently the current practice has been done so far in the traditional way, but strengthening Sharia insurance, Sharia banking practices in Indonesia to have a potential to plan, also to trade gold in the future as bullion, also quite possible. The third one is one more the thing that we currently see the pawn shop or the even the some of the traditional practitioners in the culture of Indonesia. Most of the people currently also trying to invest in terms of the jewelry and also gold. But the pawn shop currently is owned by Bank Republic Indonesia (BRI). So also need to even improve its standard if we would like to put it or to ask them as part of the bullion bank roles in Indonesia. We are thinking on how to integrate it into the banking system as part of the BRI as well universal bank, and enhance it later on as the universal bank. And last but not least is the investment bank that currently done by some of the or one of few institution. So actually, we would like to expand the business line of the securities companies that currently can do the transaction with regard to gold and gold derivatives as well. For sure, we need to strengthen its capital and risk management associated with it. But for sure, this is not the bank, but it is the one that need to be in line with the bank system and operational. So this is actually the one that we call it the proposed roadmap. As early as possible, within 1 or 2 years, we need to make it in line the ecosystem, in line it with the production of the jewelry and also the bullion, as well as how to prepare the institutional regulatory framework that need to be strengthened as a preparation of the practices of bullion bank as a full practice in the next 3 or 4 years. Determination of the governance supporting by the infrastructure, for sure, we need some of the quite investment in this and there, and then we need to capacity building as well, the infrastructure, as well as then we looking forward for the establishment of fully bullion bank by 2024. So this is the one that we currently still thinking, and we need to explore this, make sure that all of the key strategic partners looking back on the potential benefit as well as the future of the bullion banks can be happening in Indonesia as one of the opportunity for us to part of the investment, part of the also the deepening of the financial sector in Indonesia in the future. Thanks a lot, John and all the colleagues. Thank you.
Terima kasih. Adi, that was a very comprehensive and very well mapped out look at the Indonesian market and the timing and evolution that you have. Extraordinary insights from you. Something that all of us in the Southeast Asian market want is a more involved Indonesian market with the other markets within the region. It looks to me like you are trying to map it quite closely to the existing Singapore-based system, and we wish you all the very best in that endeavor. With that, I would like to end this panel session. It's been my great pleasure to moderate it. We don't have time for Q&A. We're trying to keep the timing as scheduled. But I want to thank the SBMA and the organizers for arranging this conference, and it's been my pleasure to be involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was indeed an excellent session where we learned about the new opportunities in India, the second largest physical markets for gold, and the likelihood of a bullion banking ecosystem in Indonesia, thanks to the excellent speakers, both of them, Mr. Manoj Kumar, Executive Director, International Financial Services Centers Authority, India, and Dr. Adi Budiazo from Ministry of Finance, Indonesia. Special thanks to Mr. John Levin for chairing the session and conducting it so very well. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
gentlemen. Thank you very much.